Allison is our clerk for the evening. First item on our agenda, does anybody in the room need an agenda?
I think. Yeah, thank you. If you want to share it.
First item on our agenda is meetings and minutes. Does the chair hear a motion to approve minutes of May 21 with following correction in section 8, placing 2 instances of the name Meg with the name Megan?
So what was that? So when I ended okay, yeah, that's cool. I'm good with that.
All right, second from anyone?
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion, they were excellent.
Thank you.
I captured everything.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, if you approve of the minutes with those corrections, please signify by raising your hand. Catherine, I need to record your vote. Thank you. Catherine votes in the affirmative. It is unanimous. I will submit those minutes. Item B on our agenda, we have been contacted by the select board encouraging us to get current on several minutes that were never submitted to the town. So in your meeting packet on page 8, provided a rundown of those. One of them I have dealt with. July 22 is in. I'll deal with the last one on the packet, which we just approved. And I have figured out the problem on the first one, April 25th. But we have 3 others that we need to deal with. I have been informed by the assistant town clerk that we are responsible for minutes from the 2 site visits from 2023 that nobody attended. Janet was the only member of the Climate Action Committee that went to the Thoreau sidewalk, and nobody went to Nova.
Yeah.
According to your memory, and I also double checked your memory by going on the meeting after and seeing if anybody had gone, and only Eric had gone. So I have 2 draft minutes that I have prepared for those in the form that other committees have done. And in a moment, I'd like a motion to do those, but then we have to figure out what to do about February 6th, 2024, and your network geothermal.
Yeah, the network geothermal one, I sent you the notes, which were minutes that were never approved.
You did.
Because I think I sent you copy of the notes from that meeting, but we never had another subcommittee meeting.
So the one that is in the record was the one from October of 2024, and that's posted on the town website, but there was a previous meeting, August 7th. And that is missing.
Just a second, I can look.
And you were the clerk at that one, and I watched the video and you were taking handwritten notes and not computer notes, so this may be in a notebook.
So you watched the video of the meeting?
Yeah.
There was such a thing.
Yeah, there was.
Okay, so what I was looking at was network thermal notes. So this is from we had in March. That was of 20. Okay, it's going from back to front. I have we had an original discussion in July that was not any related to the committee. Then we had something from August 7th.
Yes, that's the one that's missing.
Oh, I have it right here then. I have it right here.
If you do the same thing that you did in October, specifying that there hasn't been another subcommittee meeting since to approve those minutes and submit them as if they were minutes, will satisfy our obligations.
Okay. So I will do that.
So we need to figure out what to do about February 6th, 2024.
February 6th, 2024.
So the issue with that one is the minutes were approved. There's a copy of those minutes in that shared drive, but the minutes were approved pending adding the attendees to the list.
Okay.
I watched that meeting as well, and I can't tell who all was on Zoom. I can see who's at the table. Wasn't in this room, but I can see who's at the table. And I can see that there are 13 people logged on Zoom, and I don't know who those 13 people are.
I suggest we put the name attending, the people at the table, plus 13 people on Zoom. We're not sure, and submit it.
Okay. I will.
I don't think that the governor's gonna come after us. I think it's.
It's not
It's
not the governor. It's a resident of the town with an axe to grind. It's our problem.
Right, these people may exist, but
All
do
right.
the best you can.
I'll handle that, and I think we'll need to bring those minutes back to do a motion on those.
Yeah, we can do it.
So I'll take care of that and bring it back for next meeting.
Okay, so that's that one. Okay, back to my notes, I have to get this, and take notes. So I'm gonna note, prepare, August 7 network geothermal minutes. From notes. So I have that documented, I'm just not gonna do it all right now. Okay,
Great. Any other discussion? We know what the plan is and who's responsible?
yeah,
Okay. Does the chair hear a motion to approve minutes from June 29, 2023, as printed in the meeting packet on page 9?
gonna do them all, you have two of them, right?
I have two of them.
Identical one.
They're not exactly identical.
Close. Well, yeah, whatever, I'm second your,
I can make the motion, you gotta make the motion when we work out.
I second it.
Okay, Brad moves and Paul seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Captain will need you on Zoom again.
yes. Okay,
That's unanimous. And does the chair hear a motion to adopt minutes from November 2nd, 2023, as printed in the meeting packet on page 10?
motion approved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, yeah? Okay. You're just ready to say yes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Yep.
That was unanimous, with Catherine raising her hand
Yeah.
as well, thank you. All right, we're ahead of schedule. Oh, no, we're not ahead of schedule. We gotta talk about upcoming meeting and event dates. So on page 11 of your meeting packet, I found what I could. It's pollinator week this week. There are a lot of good pollinator events in town. I, encourage folks, if you've got a hole in the middle of your day, find a pollinator event. We've got Juneteenth events all throughout downtown tomorrow. I wanted to highlight the Framingham Repair Cafe, specifically because the Concord Free Public Library is going to do a similar event on August 16th and is actively looking for volunteers. So if you happen to be handy or know somebody who's interested in us not having a throwaway culture,
Yeah.
they should get in touch with the library. And I linked a volunteer link right on that meeting
Okay.
packet.
I'm glad you're finding these events out. I know where you find them. I think I know where you're hearing.
Well, the Framingham Repair Cafe, yes, exactly, from Mass Energize. This one I didn't find from Mass Energized. This is not even in your packet, but this is brand new information on June 25th in room A2 at the State House at 1 p.m. The Joint Committee on Telecom Utilities and Energy is having a public hearing on the governor's energy cost saving bill. If you intend to testify in person or on Zoom, you must register through malegislature.gov prior to 3 p.m. on the day before. So 3 p.m. on June 24th, if you intend to testify in person. They'll also take letters of testimony to be there in person.
Energy cost savings.
Does anybody else have any upcoming meetings or events that they want us all to know about?
Not that I can remember of him.
Anything with Mothers Out Front, Linda?
Yeah, let me look at my calendar. There, we do have we have a monthly community bike ride that we do from West Concord at the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail start, and we typically ride to Acton to Trader Joe's, and we have coffee there and we come back. But this next one we're doing, I think it's on July 29th, where the plan is to try to meet up with Acton to try to promote the bike share program that was recently launched or recently expanded to the neighboring towns. But let me check my calendar. I'll get back.
They just opened their bike share hub in Acton like last week or something, right?
Yeah, they had the grand opening. I don't know, or launch. We were going to table. I haven't touched base with the other ladies, but we were tabling there as well with some material. And then this next week on the 29th, we're gonna try to, just to promote biking and how great it is, or along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail.
That's July 29, you said, do you know the time?
I typically meet at 9:30, but this one's a little bit different, so let me bring it up here.
Okay.
If you don't end up with that detail, I think we'll have another meeting before that day.
I'll put it on the Concord website.
Yeah, it's July 29th at 9:30. We have like a QR code where people can go and it has more information.
Okay.
I can pass that along.
Anybody with anything else?
Yeah.
I'd like to move on to page 12 of the meeting packet and talk about calendar of meetings of this committee for the coming year. I'm proposing that we set a calendar to meet on the third Wednesday of the month between now and next June inclusive, except that we'll meet on the second Wednesday of the month in February and June. So it would be the third Wednesday of the month every month except for February, which would be the second Wednesday, the 11th, June, which would be the second Wednesday, June 10th.
February and June. What's special about June?
It's Bunker Hill Day on June 17th.
What?
It's Bunker Hill Day on June 17th. And we won't have a meeting on Bunker Hill Day.
Yeah. Bunker Hill Day. I didn't even know that was a day.
As a former state employee who lost my right to celebrate that day, I remember it well. Any opinions about that calendar?
In general, I like third Wednesdays. It's hard to predict. I plan out about a month ahead and I don't plan much further than that.
How do you know? Don't have anything on the third Wednesday. Unless you want to do something on Bunker Hill Day next year.
What about, is the third Wednesday of November, problem?
The third Wednesday in November is not a problem. Thanksgiving will be the next week.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I think it sounds great to me.
And I've avoided major religious holidays as well.
Wednesday's good for you?
I put it in the calendar.
Okay, good, second.
Okay, then we will plan for that. Please, set your calendars. We won't have further discussion at the beginnings of meetings to plan things. And that way I can get ahead on room bookings. We can try to be in one location. Does anybody have strong feelings or viewpoints about where we meet?
Also, you make
It's all the same, really. We like the small room.
With the climate in here, I don't wanna plan on this room, but I guess the AC is just out temporarily.
I don't care about cleaning it. AC.
But you're wearing short sleeves.
I kind of like the small room. You know. Very close, not such a big table, but.
And Kaiser Road.
And
And
Kaiser Road up there. But,
yeah, I would pay for Kai's Road too,
Okay,
but
I'll
it's not a big deal.
see if we can grab it for all of our dates,
yeah,
I'll do that. So. Location to be announced, but tentatively Kaiser Road. And you're talking the small room, you mean downstairs, first floor. Not
I
upstairs.
was thinking the upstairs.
You want the upstairs?
That is the small one.
Look out on the mill van when you get bored in the morning. See out.
I'm not looked at the room.
Second floor. Noted. All right, I'm not ahead of schedule. I'd like to move on to agenda item 3, updates from the chair. So for new members, apologies, Shelley, that somehow you slipped through the cracks. But I've gotten confirmation you're in their plans for their next meeting on the 30th. Your term should go through 2028. Bob is on the agenda for what's called an extended term. So that he can go through 2029, which will allow us staggering of our seats because right now we're all bunched.
Good.
And Ruth is currently on the agenda for the same, for an extended term through 2029. However, there's a complication. Ruth is intending to move to Germany and has decided that she would like to withdraw her name.
Okay,
So we need to find a 7th person.
right, but, with,
So my first thought was the gentleman who was here 2 or 3 months ago, Henrik,
Henry was an option.
would he be interested? He was your contact, right?
Here,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
he was mine. I can reach out to him definitely and see. I just saw him yesterday. You know, I think a lot of it is just his interest in everything, but just worried about the time commitment. But I certainly can reach out to him and see if he'd be interested in joining.
Excellent, yeah, we can't telegraph to a person that they're going to be appointed, but if you could ask him pointedly maybe whether he would like to be appointed now.
I think one job of the chair is to have enough of a conversation to see whether you think a person will be a good asset.
And another job is to delegate, and I'm gonna let her do it, since it's her contact.
That puts your,
I could meet with him too, would you rather that I met with him, Catherine?
I mean, I think it might not hurt to just I don't know, you might be in a better position to be like transparent and clear about what the actual commitment is. I mean, obviously I know as well, but you know, just thinking about plan at his temperature. I mean, why don't I do this? I could reach out, have a conversation and see if he's interested in talking to you further. If he's just sort of outright saying, no, I really can't do it, I'm probably not going to press him. But if he's interested in talking, then could I hand him off to meet with him? have
Yes.
Okay, great.
And when that's the case, I hope, please also send me his contact info because I don't have it.
Yeah, I'll do like an email intro. Yeah, and hopefully he's interested. And that would bring us to 7, and without him, we'd be at 6. Is that right?
Correct.
Keep on thinking about some other possibilities.
Well, I want to put a finer point on that. Because we're gonna have an issue of recruitment that's evergreen. And so I thought it would be a humble thing to ask, evergreen. We always have to be recruiting.
Yes, okay.
So I thought it would be a humble and achievable ask of everybody, including Michelle. Just give me one name in the next 3 months of somebody who you think would be a good prospective member. And over the summer and fall, I can network those out. So that we have an embarrassment of prospects. For next May. When we will have other terms expire.
Yeah, good idea. Thinking about the particular skills of, updating the climate action plan, plus the things we want to do next year. You know, some campaign stuff or whatever. Good.
Okay.
Okay, the next 3 months I'll give you something.
Excellent. I wanted to talk briefly about town meeting. I mean, there were a lot of things that touched tangentially on our purview. Which I did a quick write-up for everybody, and I wanted to ask specifically about 3 things in here. Certainly, if anybody wants to unpackage anything else from town meeting, we can talk about it. But I wanted to clarify whether folks here think that we have a role in these 3 things. Number one, I was very concerned to hear the superintendent say that she did not feel that they had charging infrastructure for a pickup, and that they were gonna lock themselves into a hybrid pickup, which is probably gonna last them 20 years. You know, 15 or 20 years. And I just, that rubbed me the wrong way, and evidently it rubbed Mr. Folds the wrong way too, because he saw fit to get up and talk about it at town meeting. So do we think that we need to say anything about that? Or kind of peel back the onion on that claim?
Let's also ask, what do we know? Is there any EV charging at the high school? There's no EV charging. Anywhere.
At town meeting, she said that their chargers are at Ripley.
Yeah, well, that's not where the pickups are.
No.
So, and the EV charging for a pickup could be a level 2. I don't think you need to have like anything fancy. We're talking about something that would cost a homeowner $1,000. It costs the school maybe a few $1,000. You know, you gotta put it in and stuff, but it's not a big, not a huge thing. So I'm supporting that we should work through the right channels so that they have some EV charging infrastructure. Ideally for school vehicles and for teacher vehicles. I don't think you need EV charging for student vehicles necessarily. They just go a few miles, but you should have a teacher that has EV should be able to charge it up.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, is this a CMLP issue or a school issue, you know, somehow? Maybe we gotta bring Brian, get a little bit of, but this is the modern age, right? That's what vehicles are electric.
Yep. And just hearing that stated in the meeting from the superintendent. Just raised the flag for me, and it's like,
Oh, it becomes an excuse.
yeah. Exactly.
She wanted for a truck in particular?
Well, the issue in this was Article 11, the school capital plan. She felt very strongly that it wouldn't be possible to do an electric pickup truck. And she said it, all that she could say to imply that they were gonna be trying to get a hybrid.
So. So this is school's electric pickup truck.
Yeah.
And that charge could be used obviously for a vehicle as well, car.
Well, if they had a community charger somewhere,
Yeah.
it's, yeah. But I think we should ask some questions about that.
Right, so, we should
I
also,
see you nodding your head, Ms. Dritt.
we should recommend that there's, some level 2 charging in each of the schools.
Eventually, yeah.
I assume there is at the middle school, but I don't know. There is, okay, so, the pickup truck, of course, could live at the middle school. Eventually go charge itself up. So maybe that is useful in the workshop.
No idea what their intentions are.
Anyway, so they should have a plan to install, they would install level 2 infrastructure at each school. And ideally, when you put it, when you put in a little bit, you put in the wire in the, to the parking space, so you could put in some more without as much effort, but. It's
If
worth
they're
it.
really planning ahead, yeah. It would be nice to have some scalable solutions because, no matter what they put in now, they wouldn't be able to afford what they'll need 10 years from now, or
Right.
4 years from now.
We don't, yeah. Just because Trump says EVs are not a thing, it doesn't mean that that's the case, really.
Right.
Okay,
Ms. Dritt, go ahead.
There's companies already that have solar powered EV chargers, level 2, that are like little mushroom umbrellas you can put in the parking lots.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
there's- And don't we need some method for if we can't require them to do all electric, can't we at least forbid them for doing new fossil fuel diesel vehicles? And there needs to be a partnership for financing these sorts of things between CMLP and the school department, because the school department can't really do it. These are things that benefit everybody in the town, not just the school department. But if the school department has to be the one to cover the expense, and that takes out of their main job, which is educating the kids, it's not going to get done. We've got to do it somehow. We need to have a method for all the beneficiaries to help with the cost.
who's we in that state?
I think,
When you say we.
You.
yeah, me.
And, you forbid them, or the climate action committee forbids them, or town meeting forbids them? And this is, the politics is not simple because of the money.
I
But,
mean, they keep buying diesel buses. That's incredibly expensive.
I mean,
Buy new diesel buses every couple of years.
the natural place that I see for making progress on this is when we're going through an updated climate action plan. Because that's our vehicle, as it were,
Okay.
for a midterm plan. And perhaps, you know, when the conversation is right, we can have a talk about altering town policy or setting a timeline for the town to affect a policy, which right now is a preference for electric vehicles, and saying, you know, we've got to have a date certain at some point by which.
Okay, I really like the way you've phrased that, it's in the notes.
Excellent, I hope you got my pun.
So maybe chime in to say, if it's possible to restructure the way the town manages its electric vehicle fleet. Because right now we have sort of two hats, right, the school fleet and the town fleet. So I don't know why they're separate. Because with all the electric infrastructure, CMLP really has to struggle to help the school meet its infrastructure goals. So if that could be under the town's purview instead of the school's purview for electric vehicles. Vehicle management, I think that would be more streamlined. Or getting infrastructure for parking lots and whatnot.
And
Yeah, one-
particularly police cruisers.
Yeah, it would be, and then there's the issues of money and stuff. And the fact that the school is separate from the town. And
Yeah, there's,
some
well, there's
regards, it's not so, it's not a simple, efficient.
the big hurdle there is we can't do the efficient thing because it's a snake pit of different people owning things, different power structures, different deciders. So we gotta figure that out
Yeah, good.
or work around it. And right now, we're just working around it, and that's why it's bifurcated, right? And it's not necessarily working as fast as any of us would like to see.
Town meeting.
Article 18. On the, this issue of creating and funding stabilization funds, and the thing that stuck out to me about that conversation was this word emergency. We need, you know, millions of dollars in the case of an emergency, we need to be nimble with that funding. What qualifies as an emergency? And in my mind, you know, the types of things that towns usually need millions of dollars in an emergency for, that's what FEMA's for, that's what federal disaster declarations are for.
Yeah.
We're for.
Well,
And
we declared an emergency.
we did. And so I was wondering whether the committee might think that there is again a little bit of digging to do on defining this concept of emergency and inserting ourselves into this policy setting conversation that the select board says they wish to have. So that we're very clear about ensuring that climate-based emergencies, that maybe we won't have a favorable federal landscape for declaring an immediate disaster.
Yeah.
That we are thinking about these things. Through a lens of our environment. What do you folks
Yeah.
think about that?
All those more about emergencies.
It seems to me that, as you point out, the town should define what emergency is, what's gonna come up. But obviously, we're facing a situation where we're having, you know, more climate related emergencies. And we're gonna, you know, FEMA doesn't pay for everything. And there's often a gap between FEMA funds and the need. And the state, you know, also, you know, the state also is needing them. So, yeah, so I think we ought to define emergency, and there's also. You know. We could lose, you know, say CML, about CMLP, but they emergency, like we lose lines, we hit by a tornado. They must have their own budget and their own emergency funds, or they.
I don't know what sort of funds they have, but I don't think they don't have a printing press, and I don't think they have,
I think they probably all operate their own budget though, right?
They must have some. Yeah, I don't know how, whether we wanna get involved with it.
We can go to ask some questions and kind of stay abreast of that conversation as the select board is having it.
Sure,
Yeah, I think it is, just because emergency is a very broad term.
It is, and nobody was prepared to define it on town meeting floor, which I thought was interesting, because when you have both sides of that argument saying, what do we do in an emergency, and neither of them were defining their terms.
yeah.
Okay. And do we feel like there's anything that we need to do under Article 36 on the rodenticides to ensure that, while we're waiting for the general court, the town formalizes its policy or its practices in policy?
What's Article 36?
This was the rodenticides.
That's the poison.
Yeah, the rat poison.
Okay, yeah.
So right now in town buildings, what those petitioners can actually control is town policy. Everything else needs the approbation of the general court and the government. Which other towns have not received. People have been trying this for a while. But what those petitioners could do, they wanted to, is to take the town's current practices of not using those rodenticides in town buildings and on town property and formalizing that into a town policy. Do we want to push more on that?
I kind of rather the natural resources people. Push on. That is, they also take it, now maybe they're not the same kind of committee as Tanya gave us pointed out, but they know about this, they should, it would be good if they led on that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, so.
Because it's tangentially related to climate, but it's pretty, through the biodiversity of species and stuff, but it's directly related to.
Yeah, well, truly it's about resilience, right? It's the other half of our plans, the resilience half.
Right. It's a tiny piece of resilience compared to, I think invasive species are also a critical thing, and deer and all, and there's so many things in that sphere that are strongly affecting resilience. The rodenticides, I don't like I don't like them, but I don't see it as
Is the rat population supposed to increase in a warming climate?
not very many rats, maybe more squirrels than rats,
Say again?
maybe more squirrels than rats.
Okay. I mean, no, if the population of these rodents, et cetera, is gonna grow over time. Then we think about how we're gonna manage them. So this poison, whatever, might become more. Might more pressure to use it more, which may have other impacts in the environment. But I don't know enough about it, but maybe, has there been a detailed study of this? Like,
Well, those petitioners have plenty of detail for everybody, certainly persuasive to me, digging into their materials. But maybe it's fair to maybe it's fair to just leave it at. Maybe making an intentional effort to check in with them and say, hey, how's it going?
do we have them come and make a presentation to our committee?
Well, they did a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Prior, I think it was 2 meetings ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a couple of hands up.
Yeah, Ms. Neiman, go ahead.
Hi, my understanding is that a lot of this effort was driven by Mass Audubon, and they're a pretty big organized group. And so I would think that it would make a lot of sense to follow their lead so that you guys can focus on the areas, some of the areas you've already pointed out, Brad, that have gaps in communication and would really benefit with your participation from this committee.
Ms. Dritt, go ahead.
Yes, I agree with Linda, and I think that this committee could set up the, how do you control them, without those information, like CMLP does for how do you do heat pumps.
There would certainly be space for having some information on the sustainability website.
Mhm.
I can ever see clear to doing all of the editing that I committed myself to. Point well taken. So we'll do those couple of things. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say about town meeting or things that came up during the town meeting season that we may want to be involved in one capacity or another?
Was the storm water management district discussed? Was that, or was that already passed?
Yeah, stormwater, yes.
Okay.
And they appropriated the money crucial for it, so they'll actually be spending money. That's good.
Is that money for planning or actually construction?
Oh, you'd have to look at the slide deck. I don't have it with me.
Okay.
I mean, the plurality of that funding was just getting up to federal standards. The EPA's got standards that we have not
Okay.
been up to for said years. And so more money than anything else is just getting us in line with EPA regulations. But there's a bunch of stuff that we're spending something on.
It's good.
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah.
Feel free not to call on me. I don't want to take up valuable committee time. I know you're trying to stay on schedule. I just wanted to point out, like, the stormwater and paving, parking, all that stuff. At every meeting that I went to where they talked about it, when someone asked about if they considered climate change into their calculations, they did not. So I think it's just important to keep an eye on it and just be in the room all the time and ask them, like, these numbers are not going to stay, they're going to change over time. And we really have, as you were pointing out, like with emergency preparedness, we really have to take climate add it to the equation.
And Ms. Dritt, go ahead.
I should say Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green, I'm sorry.
Well, you're my neighbor across the street, I know you.
Yay. I'm worried about the replacement of the high school giant plastic field with more plastic running off into our drinking water supply with PFAS. And they're doing that now. And then they're going to back out of the contract will expire of help with the funding of that, even though we don't know when this new one gets built whether we'll have it anywhere to put it when it comes time to replace it at all. They're having a big problem with the buildup of used artificial turf in Europe. There's only one place apparently in the United States to put it, and that's in Pennsylvania. Surely they're not going to be open for too long. They have this idea that they can get it recycled. I don't believe it. And the person who did the presentation at the hearing wouldn't answer any questions about the cost of removal or where it could be removed to, even for examples. So
agenda.
Yeah, I appreciate that concern. I think that is beyond the scope of what's on our agenda and that we can't really deliberate on that.
okay.
Yeah, so apologies for that, but I don't think that's something we can appropriately respond to in this meeting. we are behind on our agenda, so let's move on. Catherine, did you have something?
No, I was just gonna say that I'm sorry, I'm not chiming in too much. I'm having a little bit of trouble with audio, but the funding for the paving and the infrastructure, can we, to your previous comment about opportunities with the new climate action plan, can we tie that directly into the adaptation and resilience planning and make direct recommendations for that work? Is there a way to tie that together?
I think we should think about that, yeah. This gets to Mark Gillis's point, about trying to reach out to the stakeholders, mindful that if we're getting their input into the plan, that they will have ownership over the accountability to hit their goals. So I think that should be part of our conversation with them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Let's move on quickly. I did a write-up for you all on where we stand with the state and federal government. So I hope that you've been able to read that. One quick update to that, which Brad and Shelley and Catherine, I think you know about, but I wanted to make sure we kind of have it for Paul and our other guests here. The supplemental budgets appropriating the so-called millionaires tax revenues has come back from the conference committee. Two earmarks of note for Concord, 50,000 for Mass Energize to do its procurement and work, we hope, with Concord Public Schools to develop some curriculum, and also 100,000 to cover our 250th celebration transportation costs. So if the legislature approves the conference report as written, which is kind of a pro forma vote, and if the governor provides her approbation, we might see that money coming in the foreseeable future, maybe.
Right, I have some things to say about that later.
Yeah, let's do that later because I want to make sure we have time for that. I do want to just highlight this that was said on the floor of the House of Representatives. Did everybody get a chance to read that in the meeting packet, or should I read it to you? I think it's worth the time to read it.
When you talk about the meeting packet, where is that?
I emailed it to you.
Okay.
You gotta read my
I
emails,
got,
man.
no, I see the agenda.
That agenda doc is 20 pages, and that's a lot of.
Let me read this so that we can move on after. So this was said by your new Telecom Utilities and Energy Chairman, Mark Cusack, Democrat from Braintree. I'm quoting him. While we have passed major climate legislation in the past few sessions, we are in the process of reviewing all of our climate and emission mandates, goals, and plans. With the new administration in Washington pulling funding and the president's executive order preventing the development of new offshore wind, we must reevaluate and try to figure out the new reality of meeting our climate change goals without a federal partner, without our planned energy diversification. These are difficult problems and solutions and approaches, but we must now deserve to go through a transparent and public process with hearings and engagement of all stakeholders, especially the residents and businesses of the Commonwealth. In order to assess our new reality and where we go from here, everything must remain on the table. That's the end of the quote. In other words, both the administration and at least the House side of TUE are open to the concept of rolling back all of the emissions targets that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has set. Part of the roadmap bill and continued under the legislation that was passed last year. And there's going to be a need for groups like ours and towns like ours that are kind of more in the leadership role to make it clear to TUE and unfortunately to the governor that we don't approve of that direction of rolling back emissions targets and mandates. So we need to be mindful of that, especially in thinking about the good letter that you wrote Paul, for the committee. making it clear that we're taking ownership of the responsibility to talk to federal legislators and state legislators and say, we're not okay with what's going on. In rolling this stuff back. And we need to be accelerating our reductions of emissions. So that's something that I really wanna make sure that we remember. That while we have had state policymakers who are allies, they are leaving it on the table that they will take away the mandate to
Right, so
to
this is
reduce
where,
emissions.
this is a little bit more economic, it's the, you know, with, if we set some target, and we should set targets that we think are achievable, optimistic, achievable. And maybe, might be kind of grossly optimistic, a lot of things might have to line up for us to hit our target, but we can work on that. If you said that, at the same time, the federal government was working on the other direction, going in the other direction. We can set all the targets we want and, but then they're funny targets. It's,
Look, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts set emissions reduction targets as part of the Green Communities Act of 2008, and it failed to hit its 2020 targets. And they weren't targets, they were mandates. There's no consequence to that. Nobody goes to jail, nobody gets fined. There's no consequence. It's a mandate without a consequence. The concept that they would roll back a mandate for emission reduction from 2050
yeah,
that has no consequence.
yeah,
And in this time and place with the climate that's going on in Washington, I think
okay.
we ought to say that
I
that's
agree with
unacceptable.
that.
And we ought to be very consistent about that. And to the point of like,
Yeah.
money,
Okay, so,
it's very concerning to me
Yeah.
that the governor and state policymakers are setting up their major climate legislation, we're talking about energy costs. As if electricity costs and energy costs is inherently oppositional to emission reduction. There are challenges that are baked in,
yeah,
but these are twin mandates that can work together. And the setup of the governor's bill that we need to get rid of pernicious roadblocks. And to be attaching a conversation about emissions reduction onto that. I think it's beyond that, and I don't think that that's something that we should allow to pass without comment.
They can have hearings on this?
Yes, so this is, the hearing on the governor's bill is June 25. At the State House in room A2. And that's a joint
Okay,
committee
so
on telecom
that's-
utilities and energy here.
And, so I haven't read the bill, but there's some aspects that are not favorable towards sustainability and climate action. Is that what you're saying?
okay,
I mean, I think that there are things that you will look at it and you'll say that's good, and I think there are things that you'll look at it and you'll say that's bad.
Should we try to testify at that hearing?
I think somebody from the town of Concord should be testifying at that hearing in some capacity or another,
Represent the town of Concord.
representing the town of Concord, whether that is us through a letter submitted to the committee or whether that's somebody showing up. That's not my pay grade.
well, as far as I'm concerned. I'd be happy. If you testified for the, on behalf of the committee. Might even propose it if you wanted us to propose them.
Okay, if you make a motion, I can't stop you.
I mean, because. I agree with what you're saying, I know that it's complicated from the governor's chair, you know, and stuff like that, and these people are getting reelected and all that stuff. But, yeah. If, you could make a comment on behalf of that committee, which really lines up with the letter that we wrote. To that hearing. I think that would be kind of good,
Yeah,
just an opportunity.
I can help you with the testimony. we want, that's useful. And the other thing, you talk about economics, and I think it's pretty well recognized that like, you know, every dollar spent on adaptation is worth $10 worth of, you know, mitigates $10 worth of damage. There's probably similar arguments for, you know, every dollar we invest in greenhouse gas reduction has X amount of benefits in terms of, you know, public health, security, and all the other things.
Yeah.
And so if this bill is trying to take some short-term shortcuts, which in the long run are not favorable, we should be speaking up. I haven't read the bill yet.
Yeah.
To be clear, I'm as much concerned about the framing of this problem as a cost problem.
Right, yes, incorrect.
Yeah,
I agree.
so shall we have some kind of official action here?
Well, why don't we say, I'd like to make a proposal. You're well spoken on that if you choose to make a comment on behalf of the committee. The committee would, definitely support that.
And what
I
we,
would propose that, because I wouldn't want you to put you in a like that. Have to do it, but,
and what we can do is, maybe we can nominate Paul to write the draft.
Yeah, let me read the bill.
Yeah, so I'll get you offline
Yeah.
the copy of the bill and also the MAPC prepared a really good bill summary that makes it concrete
Okay,
as to how, like, what the nexus would be with the town.
and this is the governor's bill.
Mhm. Yeah.
Interesting, because I mean, she's, you know, big on climate change. I mean, she's usually very supportive. Yes, let's take a look at it. Yeah, send it to me. Please. You'll send it to the whole committee.
Yes. Well, yeah, it's already been sent out to the committee, but I'll get it to the top.
I'm missing something.
We really do need to move on.
Should we
Any other
vote?
discussion?
Do we need to vote on that?
We probably should.
Well, yeah, I propose that, Brad and I, together with help from Paul, could make a comment, in line with, the letter which was written and in line with our climate goals, for this legislation.
I'll second it.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, would be in line for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Oh, yeah,
That is unanimous. Okay, let's move on. The director's update from Megan was attached to the agenda and is also in your meeting packet. I just wanted to highlight that I had a side conversation with Jerry and asked Jerry to really keep his finger on the pulse on the ESCO project, and he intends to do that. Jerry was very happy with the latest version of the ESCO RFQ, and that it did all of the good things that we discussed last month. I also attended the Commonwealth Climate Roundtable event yesterday in Cambridge. You hear all about the things that Cambridge and Boston officials did on municipal energy procurement, which is something that I know nothing about and now need to ask a lot of ignorant questions about, which I'll intend to do. But I think that Megan or I or Shannon, I hope Megan or Shannon will keep in touch with the roundtable because it could be beneficial to us in the future.
so you attended them.
I did. I did, and the only other municipal person that wasn't presenting was the sustainability director from Lexington.
Okay.
Everybody else was in industry.
Okay.
So we had a very good perspective. We do have our climate action plan money as part of the capital budget, and we're able to get going on that. And Megan, is really looking forward to working with all of us and is
How much is it?
75,000. And I looked, I looked at what some other towns that have done these have done. Many of them got MVP grants to do this, and they were all 75,000 to 100,000. There are comps for us doing this at 75,000. Gloucester did this for 69,000, so 75,000 is low, but it's not unreasonable.
So that list of other plans, you would put that together.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
And I hope that we'll all be, if you haven't already, we'll be canvassing those.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about select board goals?
I just wanted to ask if our funding was also through a grant, if that was from this thing.
It's, no, it's part of the town capital plan, so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's our CapEx. So we have many of the communities that have written these plans have done them with MVP grants. And we have an active MVP grant to do this,
The
the
Water-
river,
Yeah.
the watershed thing.
right.
So we would need two bites at that apple. There are a lot of different funding streams and small grants that a town can go after, and it was Eric's responsibility to go to, you know, where to do what, ask. People in town felt ownership over us just paying for it. So
Right.
we're just paying for it. But yeah, in future years, 5 years from now, we may wanna think about that, and remember, we could have the state pay for it.
Right.
5 years from now. Should we move on to select board goals?
Sure, is there, what do you mean?
So I think, obviously, we need to say things about sustainability. And I think that there's an open question about how broad we should be. And how specific we should be on the things that we report up to town leadership on sustainability.
Yeah.
And I think that we should take our recent experiences regarding effective governance and opine there as well. I'm vexed that we didn't have a seamless transition. Not just with Shelley, but in general, like. The recruitment and onboarding of members, everybody should be clear on everybody's responsibilities. Everybody should know what the process is, everybody should be onboarded on the committees, I feel. And I just think that we can be doing that better as a town, having lived through it and also sweating. Not just your appointment, but also Bob and Ruth as well, and really needing to kind of like check in to make sure that they're on the agenda with the select board, because they weren't going to be.
Right. So, I mean, things will. The select board needs to work through its liaisons to make it seamless, of course. And there's gonna be times when, and those liaisons are volunteers like us, so. We. It's too bad if that happened, but it's. It could be, it should be better, but. Can't be perfect.
Well, I'm not saying that we have to, you know, kick and scream and drag people to woodshed or anything, but I think that we should point out, like,
Yeah.
there is an opportunity here for
Yeah, maybe it's-
professionalizing
so-
and clarifying roles.
And that's, there's a case where. The same thing has to happen over and over again. So many committees, so many volunteers. It should be like. The name goes, the name gets put in and it gets on the agenda automatically. Yes. Yeah,
And, you know, look for those, for the select board's part anyway, they're prospectively hiring an executive assistant, right?
yeah,
That would do a lot of that admin, I would presume. And so this would be a natural place to ensure that that position, if it's hired, has a standard by which, you know, it's measured.
okay,
So I think we've got to figure out the scope of what we want to send up to the select board, and we've got to figure out who's gonna write it and get it to them.
What is it, this is July, that is on,
Yeah, so I think we need to. We need to make a decision now and have somebody work offline to put a package together and send it up.
and what, so that has to happen before our next meeting.
I believe so, yes.
Um, Is Wendy still our liaison, right?
She is for now, and she hopes to re-up in that role. They're gonna redo all of her roles next month. And she's expressed that she's gonna be asking to stay on.
So this, the link that you sent out for the 24-25 select board windows, that's from our committee, or is that?
No, those were the select board's goals. Yeah,
That's in their entirety from
Yes.
the various 60 seconds.
yeah. And then in all of the years that they've been doing this, the document is always kind of distilled down to something between 1 and 4 pages. So that's kind of a more, on the more detailed end, what they would be doing. But you know, they're distilling what they get from all stakeholders, so I think we send them 1 to 4 pages.
So really, we want to be commenting on this section, this is sustainability, the sort of like 8 bullet points of stuff, plus are the bullet points that are missing, are the things that want to be improved, that's fine.
Yeah, and to be clear, like, those are just my starting point notes, I would expect you all
Well,
to
these
have
are your notes.
some thoughts as well.
These
Yeah.
these are your notes, these didn't come from the select board.
Those are me.
Good Lord. Okay. Here we are together. They haven't seen this,
No,
okay,
so,
good, so let's, um.
Hmm.
Might change a couple of words or something like that, but I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to really go through this. You know, and sustainability principles. And, one of the things, by the way, that, has been done in the past is on regarding the sustainability principles is that. Town employees have been trained on the meaning and use of the sustainability principles. Since they're, I'm not necessarily suggesting we do that, but, Concord can, a few years ago, paid for a consultant to come in to, work with the town. Employees, and there was some workshops, this is back in Chris Williams.
maybe time to do it again.
Could be time to do it again. It's something that, could be worth it. Yeah,
I would,
Maybe back to the.
I agree with that, especially since they're having, at the town meeting, the town manager spoke about sort of spreading climate actions across various departments, and she had a large list.
Yeah.
But public works folks are not including climate repercussions in their calculations of their actions. So there's definitely a bit of a gap.
it's gonna. Yeah. So now that was, so one, we just take it down here. We could suggest that, that they, well, this is a big year with the climate action plan, so I, in a sense, select your board goals for this year to really support the climate action plan. Readoption is a pretty good goal. And it's asking a fair amount. So you got that down. The other, maybe, that's kind of our big goal for this year. And, the extent that you support it, well, that's very good.
So
But then the connection between all the departments in town, like public works. Ensuring that, their direction is that, climate be properly incorporated in all the town's policies from all the departments. Is that within your comments?
The way that, so the way that I proposed wording it is, and this is the first bullet under sustainability on page 23. Ensure that the town's well-established and popular sustainability principles are reflected as part of this, the select board's goal-setting exercise, and a consistent theme in the discussions and actions of all town departments and committees.
Right, so that's always a goal. That's a goal every year.
And it's not often said in the select board goals document, so
Right, so that's a good goal, but that doesn't cover, making sure that that future, that doesn't cover, projections of future climate or anything,
No.
this is just about. How do we make decisions about plastic fields, how do we make decisions about, all these things we gotta spend money on.
Yeah.
So,
other communities I know have come up with carbon budgets. For their departments, like a financial budget.
really,
To throw out there,
what can
more of a
you,
European idea,
do you know, do we consider that in Massachusetts or?
not in Massachusetts,
You say a climate budget?
carbon budget.
Okay, carbon, okay.
So like a monetary budget, every department gets carbon budget.
So this could be part of the climate action plan.
Ooh.
Rather than invent that out of thin air, it can be part of our updated climate action plan. Something like that. But, yeah,
It's not, but it doesn't cost anything,
well,
not for
carbon budgets,
yeah.
carbon budgets do cost money. And the reason they cost money is you're gonna be making decisions based on that budget. That might cost more than the cheapest. thing.
But this gets, this gets to what Jerry was doing
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
of like. Have your value option, your,
Right.
find your happy point on the cost curve. Yeah,
So. The leading point on select board goals, sustainability related. Could be ensuring that Concord remain. A leader in fighting climate change and promoting community sustainability. The other bullet points. Kind of fall within that, right?
not necessarily everything that I said there. My second bullet point, put solar panels on the roof of the middle school.
That is, a lot of communities have already done that, but we have a hard time doing it, yes.
it's supposed to be happening this summer.
What's that?
Supposed to be happening this summer.
Yeah,
Shall we make some kind of resolution about how we want
so
to?
I would be more word than middle school, by the way. Middle school and, supporting the recommendations of the solar municipal total task force. Cause that's broader than just the middle school, that's these other properties, and they're kind of in limbo now, they're, may get to them someday. If there's money. Stuff like that.
Okay. So in interest of time, I think we do have to
Okay,
have a resolution on who's gonna own responsibility for getting this into a clean letter and getting it to the select board. Might I suggest? that the most efficient course of action would be that I'll email this to everybody on the committee, so it's at your top of your inbox. Send me your feedback and suggested
Yes, okay,
changes, and that I be memorialized with the obligation of speaking on behalf of the committee to the select board.
no, I don't think we need to vote on it, but I think it's a good idea.
I'm sorry to just throw in another big ideas throwing out there, but I was mentioning to Brad that I met with League of Women Voters and Mothers Out Front, and no one had it come up that no one had done a financial greenhouse gas sort of assessment of the town's investments. That there's been no divestment or anything like that.
We voted on doing that, dedicated.
So, do you know that that's happened? And there's no one in that, there was a lot of history in that room, so I didn't know if someone here knew that had happened in town.
We had an article about divesting town pension funds and stuff like that, 10 years ago.
Did they do it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm very interested, given my line of work, and I would love to follow up and find out how we can make sure that they're accountable for that. And then not just the pension funds, but you know, if there's these emergency funds and just like, where is the money being parked and where is it sitting? Because, you know, if we have $1 million in account that is funding fossil fuels, you know, there's the greenhouse, you know, scope 3 emissions, category 15 of the greenhouse gas protocol. You know, that can be material, and we can measure that, and we can make a strong argument that that actually has a larger impact on the climate than, you know, our composting program, you know, by like 30 times. So I very much would back that being inserted in some sort of goals. And I don't know if that has to go to FinCom or if the select board oversees FinCom's goals or how that works. I'm still kind of getting up to speed of how the town government actually works. So, but I would love to have some language in there.
Yeah, so. Yeah, they should regularly review them. Every year or two, just to make sure that they're in compliance with the town passes them. So I think that's worth putting in the select board goals, so.
Oh, I was hearing that maybe Catherine would take that on.
Yeah. And
Was that your intention, Catherine?
I will definitely taking on, I could write something up around that particular piece. Do you mean the entire, what do you say, take that on?
The discrete piece of ensuring that whatever we voted on 10 years ago or whenever it was, that we're actually doing it. In terms of not banking with
right,
people like Chase Bank that take a lot of fossil money, and you know, I think that we're within whatever ESG principles we talked about whenever it was.
I'm gonna go look, I'll go look at what we voted on.
I don't remember that. That might have been more than 10 years ago. It might have been before
Well,
I got
it
here.
was a little.
Yeah, if I would be happy to, if there's a way to kind of surface the history, just because, you know, I'm still
Yeah.
fairly new to town and only a year into the committee. So that would be great, Brad, if you can just surface whatever we do know. And then we can, yes, I'd be happy to draft some language to insert either in the select board goals or to circulate with this committee at a future meeting to vote on if or to review if that makes sense.
It does. I think this will be more homework and more time than doing it for select board goals, but we can kind of bring this up anytime that we have our information straight.
We don't wanna pile too much on there beyond the,
No.
yeah, we want. So I do wanna tell you, Brad, that I'm gonna be away and off of the grid for you know, like July 1st to 15th.
Well,
I'll
that's,
try to do what I'm gonna do next week.
yeah, let's do it a lot sooner than July 1st.
Good.
Well, we caught up a little bit. We're about 16 minutes behind right now. Let's talk about the climate action plan.
Yeah.
Did folks get a chance to do the homework assignment and read the Brookline RFP?
I did a different one, so.
Okay,
I decided to just think about scope, what we wanna ask a consultant, rather than start to look at other, what other communities have done, stuff like that. And I found the scope document. From 2019 for the creation of the first climate action plan, so that's kind of like. An RFP is like, rapid and legalese and boilerplate and, find a consultant that can go do this scope. So if it's appropriate, I'd like to just share it, and in particular, I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but just the highest level table of the main tasks we want a consultant to do. Do you mind if I share it on?
yeah, go ahead, just bear in mind, we are behind on the agenda.
Yes, I know.
Reader's Digest version, please.
Well, this is gonna be the Reader's Digest, but this is the meat of the meeting, so I'm gonna just go here, so I'm on Zoom here. I'm gonna share the screen. What I'm gonna share is,
So we all should go to Zoom, is that what you're telling me?
You should be able to see it right up here.
Okay,
Once he shares.
I guess it's just gonna be this desktop one here, share that, and that's gonna make that go away. And I'm gonna go to this document here, not this one, is this the one? No, this is the original scope document. I found a PDF and I turned it into a doc. And this is what I call the Climate Action and Resilience Plan Scope of Work Update. And, there's some text, minor text things, and there's a lot of editing to do to make it right. But this table is what I wanted to show you. There's two tables, and you're gonna have a hard time seeing it because of the size. So let me see if I can make it bigger by going to 150%. And now it sort of shows up. Are you able to read that?
yeah,
We have eagle eyes. Did you read that? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the old version. The old version started with the baseline assessment, goal setting, community engagement plan. And this was starting from nothing, right? Well, not nothing, but it was the first climate action plan. Assessing goals, developing goals, creating a stakeholder engagement plan, and they had a couple months for that. And then there was deciding what are your actions, how do you prioritize them? That is a few month period. And then implementation plan development, that's writing the plan and then finalizing them. So my table is, we don't have as much money. Things might be more expensive now than they were a few years ago anyway. So we can't ask for as much, but we want this consultant to work with us the best way. I envision something like this: progress assessment, reviewing progress since the 2020 climate action plan, and come up with a new stakeholder engagement plan, revising the old one or something, in a couple of months. Assuming maybe we can choose a consultant in August, they can get started in September. This is, month 1 and 2, depending on when they get started. I think stakeholder engagement should be early. But I'm also thinking that on the stakeholder engagement, so there's probably some stakeholder engagement in reviewing the climate progress, because you have to talk to people to figure out what the progress is. And we're all this is in conjunction with our committee. And with Megan and with the other staff people that we can pull in to help us with these things. We'll have to, what I don't have in here is a revision of the action identification, like maybe there should be a separate line which just says review what actions there are and what actions we want to eliminate and what actions we want to add. Maybe that's, so the part that's, so there's a stakeholder engagement piece we want to do fairly early. But we want to take the pulse of the committee and of the community and have them engaged in the plan. That's visioning set meetings with people with knowledgeable people on the different topics. You know, I can, you know, we can list who we think those people are, make sure everybody's invited, their own sessions. One part that's new, I think.
The stakeholder engagement should be continuous.
It should be continuous, but it should be very deliberate that,
Fine, yeah.
that in a part of, there should be intensive stakeholder engagement fairly early on.
I agree, but it's equally continuous to the whole process.
Exactly.
No, so it shouldn't be implied, you should say, every November, December, then continues or something.
Okay,
So it's something that we should keep in mind regarding stakeholders. We've got, you know, different classes of interested parties.
Yeah.
There are people who are going to be owning accountability. They are people who are going to be accountable
okay,
for doing the things. So there are people with ownership of accountability, or people that we want to stage them so that they will take ownership of accountability.
right,
That's one set of stakeholders. Got another class of stakeholders that maybe are community-based stakeholder groups.
yeah,
Mothers Out Front, Concord Can. Organizations, town, school, yeah. And then you've got a general obligation to the public
right.
as well.
Everybody, stakeholder in that one.
And so we need to be intentional about ensuring that all of those different groups are catered to with
Right,
their needs. And that the engagement is meaningful. Something that might be very instructive about what Brookline specifically is doing, that we might want to improve upon. So Shannon, as part of her homework, lives in Brookline, she went to one of their public engagement things for their plan. And she and her partner both attended 2 different breakout groups. And they were, you know, very limited in scope about the things that they would talk about. 1 or 2, you know, bullet points. What do you think about this? Where's your head at on these 2 possible
yeah,
climate solutions? And really directing it in a very narrow way at the things that the consultant already wanted to be doing. And not something that was more open-ended. There are pluses and minuses to doing it that way, but when they were debriefing this, the reflection that actually Shannon's partner had that resonated for her too, and resonates for me, is it felt like they were checking the box of have 2 public sessions for engaging with the public
Right.
feedback. And sure enough, if you go to the Brookline RFP, it says have at least 2
yeah.
sessions. And this was one of their 2 sessions, so check the box. And it's a deliverable and it's not something that they're gonna do, you know, substantively. And one of the things that we should be very mindful of, and again, you know, it's for me, it's
Yeah.
this thing that Mark said about use your engagement.
Yeah.
To get people to buy in.
Right,
We don't wanna just be setting up our RFP. And our relationship with whomever our vendor ends up being is one where they're just checking the box of public engagement or stakeholder engagement. We really want to be
so,
cultivating the buy-in and having a 2-way communication act with
okay, so
people.
then, I think we have, this has to be in the scope. And we have to define what it means. Maybe it's those deliberate public sessions, 2 or some number or something, and then,
Or to
almost a month.
not put a number on it, to say it's a continuous obligation.
Well, I would put a number on some things that they gotta do, and they gotta meet the numbers. But they should also, the process should include. sort of monthly updates from the climate action plan team to, you know, to the town. With opportunities for comment, et cetera. Or what, is that the right, I don't know.
You know, I was, you know, there's studies like it here, right?
Yeah.
And 75 kids, there's not tons of them. Maybe, let's say our committee should write, essentially something like what Brad just said. But these are the classes of stakeholders we want you to engage in.
Yeah.
We want to know how you're gonna do it. Or the other thing is really looking bolder, we could say, the town will work with you to do the stakeholder assessment work.
Right.
You know, that puts a lot of responsibility on the town, but in a way, it might free up consultant resource to do more technical work.
Yeah.
Or, we might hire a separate group to do the stakeholder engagement. Like,
Well, I think it's all.
there's too much money, but there are some people out there that specialize in this.
Yeah, but the people who, yeah,
I mean, it's very tempting for some consultant come here and do sort of a cookie cutter, you know,
right,
project. That's
And
a good-
And
that's a
if you
good-
look at a lot of these plans,
Yeah.
the theme for me in both looking at Brookline and then also a lot of these other links that I've provided in the meeting packet that you're gonna have to dig through. I mean, so many of them have the same dashboard with the same graphics.
right.
And it takes a little bit of the shine off the apple of our plan to see that all of these other towns have
Right.
very similar things.
That's because, Kim Lunger did a lot of those
So many.
studies, and they shouldn't all be totally different. However, they shouldn't be cookie cutter, because it's our plan. But now, I wanted to point out what I put down number 3 is a new task. Basically, I want this plan to be the 5-year plan and the 25-year plan, in the sense of the 2020 plan, in terms of the implementation steps, that stuff's gonna get done in 2021 and 2022, et cetera, and then almost, it was kind of like a 5-year plan. I'd like this to be a little more vision, 25-year vision, and say, okay, and that's gonna take some analysis, this stuff is not simple.
Yeah.
What do, you know, maybe it takes a little bit of modeling and figuring out, okay, how many heat pumps and how many, all these things do we need, every 5 years? And can we see what the barriers are and such? I'd like to do that as a fairly early stage and have an interim report, which is setting goals on actions to meet targets. And that's not necessarily the implementation is figuring out how to accomplish those goals, of those actions and goals, but this is like, give us a little bit more of a dashboard of what we want, where we need to be in 2030, 2035, etc. Now, this is a chunk, and this may not fit within the 75,000, and I don't know,
If it doesn't though. There will be opportunities to find funding at later dates
right,
to do that and to. Attempt to get this into our work now makes a lot of sense to me, because if I'm buying a pickup next year.
yeah,
It might last until 2050 and it might be on the balance sheet for our emissions
Yeah.
goals for 2050. If we buy it this year, it might be.
yeah,
So it's time to be more forward looking at that stuff, because the decisions that we're making now may end up causing us to make different decisions for emission reductions later, because we just bought that pickup.
right. So, okay. So I put that in, and then the other things are like just basically straightforward. Yeah, we need to update the implementation plan the way we did before. A lot of the bullet points under this task are gonna be kind of the same as they were before. Finalize the updated plan, which means, writing and presenting it and including getting it on the website. You know, we need to have, we need the plan to be a publicly accessible thing. And the consultant needs to help with that.
So what are the next steps to get these thoughts into Megan's hands and getting them ready for an RFP to go out?
I think, I want to admit that I did this before, didn't I? So it's not like I have thought this through in great detail. But I think we should have a meeting with Megan. And Shannon might be able to.
Who's Shannon?
I don't
So
know.
Shannon's job title is management specialist. In eliminating the sustainability director position, all of Eric's responsibilities were bifurcated between the deputy town manager, Megan, and Shannon McAndrew. So Shannon is, I don't want to try to speak for her as to what all of her responsibility portfolio shall be. But a lot of the things that she's gonna be doing are gonna be the kind of like the ongoing work. When we have a responsibility under our plan set, liaising with other people in the townhouse. Between the two of them, on paper, all of the sustainability directors are accounted for between Megan and Jane.
If you want to, if you could set up a meeting next week in the Thursday, Friday time frame. Or the following Monday possibly, where I fly, with Megan and Shannon. And I'd like to attend, and you might invite one other member or something,
Why can't we all go?
If we all go, it's a public meeting. But
Why don't we, yeah, can we schedule a special public, this is really important.
yeah, okay,
Can we schedule a special meeting of our committee to meet with Shannon and,
right, during
Megan
the day,
about this?
during daytime hours probably.
Yeah, whatever, yeah, maybe, yeah.
So that's, you know, I agree with Paul on that too, it is important, and we can make another. Public meeting.
it's a little bit of a lift. To try to turn something around that fast. She's out of the country, half the town is out of the country right now. On this trip to Japan, so,
Oh, I didn't know about the Japan.
yeah, so I don't know. Whether
Yeah.
she would be prepared to do something that. That would be a publicly posted meeting. That fast, but we could see about it. I'd be willing to commit that I'd look into it and
Maybe
ask,
it's in Japan.
yeah,
You
on
ever
the
looked
sister
up?
city trip.
You can, get her on WhatsApp, you can see whether.
Well, we'll see,
Possibly fly.
we'll see.
Also, this isn't anything about adaptation,
What?
there's nothing here about adaptation here.
Right, there's a lot missing here, that's why there's,
Okay, so,
so, right, so.
Catherine, do you have something to say?
Yeah, so when I say emissions reduction planning, then adaptation planning is also, either in that task or a separate task, it, has to be,
yeah,
Go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I was just gonna ask, I'm not there, so I actually don't, you know, who, other than the committee members, I don't know who else is attending tonight, but, you know, in the absence of having a dedicated sustainability director, I'm wondering what is the expectation in terms of attendance by select board member and our town staff liaison, whether it's Megan or is it Shannon, to our meetings, like just generally, I know, I like the idea, I would support the idea of going to them and having a special meeting, but just beyond that, for the year, is there an expectation that both the select board liaison and as town staff member will attend our meetings on a regular basis or as needed, or? I
I
still don't
have
think,
communicated to all three of them that I want all three of them at all of our meetings. I am not their boss and I can't make them do it.
I like it. All right, great, thanks.
Okay, so. In summary, I didn't get much done, but I updated this table. And I'd like to, I think getting this, if we can get this scope document pretty good. Maybe including a little too much stuff. Cause we have a fixed amount of money, we want someone to come through, we want a good consultant to come and say, you know, for 75,000, I can do. Most everything and, I might have to go light on this, you know, respond to this scope and tell us what they can do.
So
I think, is that the right thing to think about it?
I don't know what you mean, but those RFPs are pretty difficult to put out, I think, but, those are the RFPs that really encourage creative, you know, responses that do something that you're getting.
Yeah,
So maybe the RFP could list sort of like several broad goals. And then the RFP could say, tell us how you're gonna do this.
yeah,
If they might think of less cookie cutter stuff, or some creative thinking, and then have some meetings, allow the consultants to ask questions to us while they're writing the proposal. If they wanna do that, have a, you know, period, they can talk to us, you know, up to 2 weeks before to do or something.
yeah,
So I think that, given the. People are gonna be coming back from a thing. You know, next week, and you're about to go off to the thing. Trying to thread the needle on a meeting is gonna be difficult, not impossible. I don't feel that, I think if you're there. I don't feel like I need to be in on an RFP meeting, I can trust. People that have a more detailed level of knowledge than I have to be responsible for it.
yeah,
Shelley, if you wanna be there, you don't factor in a forum issue, you can be there as a member of the public. So we've got no need, I think, to have a publicly posted meeting for this, and we should try to make it easier for
Yeah,
Megan
it's a
to be
working
able to do this. And have a working meeting with a non-quorum of this.
yeah.
Catherine, do you feel like you want to be in on that meeting?
No, I do not need to be, and I don't even know if I'd be able to, because I'm traveling as well.
Right, so I'll reach out with. Shelley, do you wanna be doing this?
I'm happy to learn.
Okay, let me reach out to Megan and say what we're hoping to have happen in that window.
Okay, great,
And we'll see if we can get it done, and if we can't, we'll come up with some contingency plans so that we can make the RFP happen sooner rather than later, because I mean, I view this as an ambitious timeline,
Yeah.
honestly.
is Monday over there too?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You can try to schedule it next week, you know, anytime I can do it is Friday morning. Or Wednesday.
Wednesday is possible.
Hmm?
Wednesday is possible.
Yeah, for you, we'll have to see what's possible.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, Wednesday I could do or Friday morning, that's it.
We do, you know.
I made a promise to Rebecca Woodward that we would be very clear about what we're doing with transportation. And reviewing where we are on transportation, which has been backburnered now for 7 months, 6 months.
I'm gonna stop you.
Rebecca really wants to do her input on where we've been on transportation. She's pulling together a team.
Who's Rebecca?
Rebecca Woodward, who is she has a seat on TAC, Transportation Advisory Committee. And we had tentatively gotten her to volunteer to do a lot of review of where we are in transportation items. If you recall, like your good spreadsheet that we went through as recently as last meeting, on the transportation tab there, we've got some people penciled in on, I'm gonna review electric vehicles, I'm gonna review this, all of our things on the dashboard.
Right,
Rebecca's responsibility portfolio on that spreadsheet is like half of that stuff, and she wants to go and do it. But she wants a green light from us, and I think that we should have a plan in place. While we don't have written into a formal RFP and have a vendor in place, I think we need to still be doing some level of review on where we've been. So that we don't get behind and not have time to review. So can we have a general agreement here that we'll get back to serious review transportation. Allow Rebecca to do her half of that spreadsheet and figure out who's gonna be responsible for reporting on what. Regarding what we've done with transportation under the current plan.
So, and does that like mean, that our July meeting will be focusing on that?
Focus, no, but maybe we can have some reports.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that we get back to flexing those muscles of actually looking at the plan and reviewing what we've done and where we are.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I know also Linda has, they did with Rebecca's help and others and Betsy, I see you're on the call, like, a really great audit, transportation audit, and, presentation that, maybe it was shared with the committee, but I think it was scheduled to be shared with the committee. Weighing the ways to present its
And I'm gonna interrupt you because your connection is bad, you're going in and out. But that report had been on our agenda for a meeting and it got preempted because we had to mark up a letter. And so we never got the benefit of that report, and I felt bad about that. I still want to get that information in a meeting if we can find agenda time for it at some point, because we didn't get the benefit of that work. And maybe part of that can be wrapping it in with Rebecca reporting on our status. Or we can have folks from others out front, Betsy or Rebecca or whomever wants to present some agenda time when we can make it. Cause I would like to have that in our thinking.
Yeah,
We're coming up close to 9 o'clock,
right.
so.
I'm just noticing that for some reason I thought the third Wednesday would be earlier than July 16th, or sorry, later. But it looks like the next meeting is July 16th. Is that right? I unfortunately I cannot attend that evening. So I hope that doesn't cause problems from a quorum standpoint, but I don't want to stall this work. So I think I fully support the motion or the thought to put that on the agenda and dedicate some good time to a transportation update.
At least Shelley and Bob should be on board by then, so we won't have a quorum issue. And anything that you're responsible for that meeting, we'll make sure that you've got some time set.
I'm emerging from the jungle that day, but I will be back.
You're an old man, we expect you to be resilient. Do we have more to discuss here before we try to wrap?
Yeah, I'd like to just mention something. If relating to the community engagement piece. Just reporting that we about this education money. I just want to clarify, this is this is a grant that Mass Energize is working on, that will probably get us, with 95% probable. And what we're envisioning doing is it's a clean energy challenge. And this is basically not inserting into classroom. And by the way, and Shelley, Harlan and I met with the curriculum lead for the schools at the time, tested against somebody involved in the schools. And Shelley Chin had some good suggestions. We're envisioning teams, we're envisioning like up to 10 schools involved. Teams of like 4 to 8 students working together as an after-school activity with an advisor, together with supported by a member of the local energy or climate committee, to design a clean energy campaign. And that means something like, how do we get more people in our town doing heat pumps? or solar panels and batteries or various things. It's emissions focused and it's a project that involves aspects of understanding technology, understanding finances, understanding marketing, and how to reach people. So we're excited about this as a project. There would be stipends for teams that took part to cover expenses and also potentially to cover some staff time, because that means the advisor for a team of students actually has to get paid every school for the extra time that they spend. I didn't know that, but that's the way it works. Teachers have to be paid. Really, surprising. And then, there'll be some prizes. There will be some prizes for teams that really excel. And there'll be an event in like May. To award prizes and get all the teams together. And the ideal scenario is the students put together a campaign. And through the school year, and the energy committee or sustainability committee takes it from there. And continues to execute it. And accomplishes something, get some has an impact in their community. And my hope is that Concord Carlisle will take part. And it's something which is probably the Green Team or something like that, an after-school club. It could involve high school interns because they have these internship programs. And they don't even. I think we're gonna try to be putting materials together and announcing it in August, and really trying to reach out to lots of schools around then, so that in September a number of schools could decide to participate. It's taking a little bit of learning about how schools work and stuff like that, but I think it's an exciting project because we see it as. It actually copies something that's called the Envirothon, which apparently Lexington High School always competes on and wins, which is a similar type of group project to get something done. We're excited about it, Mass Energized, because it sounds like something we could do every year if it works. It would the first year would work the kinks out of it. But it could be fun.
It's excellent. Is there anything that's needed from this committee? Other than what you guys do?
Because the part that we want to keep in mind is that this could lead into a campaign that we run in spring of next year.
When the Concord Carlisle team wins, we do.
Whether or not we win, whether or not we win.
Love it.
But it could be that, it could be solar and batteries or something like that. Something that works, with us. We have a complicated thing because we have a regional high school, so Concord and Carlisle would be involved. But that's a good way to collaborate. That's a good way to collaborate with things. We did that before in Heath Start. Like 7 years ago, we had a joint program that was, we learned a lot from each other.
I wanna zap through stuff under item 7 or other updates to ensure that nobody has anything else on their mind that they need to
Just
set.
one thing.
Yeah, go
No,
for it.
I'm still committed to the goal of our call for action. About developing some municipal coalitions to share knowledge and push back. I just haven't had time to work on it. But how much am I allowed to do on this? Like, I was gonna contact some people in Sudbury and when they wrote my email. Some people in our sustainability committees in neighboring towns. Can I just call them up?
We had by consensus and not with any kind of formal resolution said, yeah, go for it.
Okay. And so if, you know, Jerry was involved in this initially. So, and I bother, I'm like, I'll let you guys know what I do. I'm really time challenged right now, but more I learn, the more. I'm doing it.
So I want to, with a goal of being done in less than 5 minutes, I want to just one by one go through everything on the agenda here under 7. Brad, 7A residential engagement ideas for other public events campaigns. I kept this on the agenda because this had been something that kept getting cut for time, meeting after meeting. Do you have something on your mind that you want to be doing for that, or?
On residential occasion.
Yeah, is there
I
some,
do a lot, it's.
do you want me to leave this on your, on the agenda for,
Yes.
okay. Network geothermal, I just want to call everybody's
Wait, so-
attention to what Megan sent in the director's update.
Right.
There's a grant that the town and CMLP have submitted letters of report for with the Green Communities Division, and they're looking to hear. So we may have more on that next month.
It's with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
She didn't specify that.
It's a piece of their grant for technical assistance from it. And it'll probably happen, and they haven't been very communicative. They're busy too, I guess.
I'm sorry, MAPC haven't or DOER?
Are willing to put us in, which I appreciated, but then the stuff was funny to email. But they did appreciate that we sent them letters of support.
Well, let's hope that Megan can kind of
Yeah.
seize that and keep on them. Do we have anything to report on school solar projects, other than there aren't solar panels on the roof of middle school presently?
The B2G grant got submitted. With that, I don't know if that's been updated.
Is that the school bus one?
Well, that's for the buses, yeah, for the bus charging.
But for the solar, I believe. Can't remember. The progress on-
I don't remember.
Oh, they signed the RFP
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's progress.
for solar.
That was the school committee for it. Yeah.
Excellent.
This little guy who's retiring. Who's the district's sustainability director.
Interesting. And on composting, we don't have much to report until, because we turn into a pumpkin when students go home from school. Is that accurate?
Pretty much, I think Megan wants to get resurrect that at the end of summer.
Should we keep though on our action items that Megan should own responsibility for developing the survey instruments so that that can be going out over the summer? So that we have data when everybody comes back in September? Or is that too ambitious?
Well. Question, it's dependent on. People aren't around, it's not a good time to collect data. I mean, some people don't, but. I think you wanna do that pretty. Yeah,
I mean, we don't even have the survey instrument beginning to be developed unless she has it sitting. on her computer.
developing the survey over the summer is a great idea. We want the students to have some input. To the survey, I think.
What is the goal of the survey? Is it just simply to see how many people, just to collect data on usage and desire? Or is it to also sort of educate? And, yeah, what's the goal?
I think it's to inform any decisions that the town makes. Based on, we know these pilots are oversubscribed. But we don't really know who's using them. And who's using those drop offs and whether they would be happier with another solution or something. Pretty much that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm happy for Megan to pursue it. I think it would be great if we could review the data collection process or have some input into it. Just don't want it to be a missed opportunity, to sort of present scenarios and understand and get data from the public about what, what's possible versus just kind of looking backwards about what's happened so far.
My understanding was that the intent is, yeah, how do we scale and what do people want? So I think she's in alignment with what you're saying, but we can make sure of that.
Okay, great.
And I just want to plug for everybody what's going on with MCI Concord, thinking about public stakeholder processes and just checking the box. I really want to make sure that everybody on our committee is staying on top of the Reimagine MCI Concord website. The workshops that they held, the 2 in-person workshops, there were 200 attendees. They had a Zoom session the next day, and that Zoom session is online. You can see it at mci-concord.org. I also gave you the links to the online workshop in the meeting packet on page 25. You should see the slide deck, what they've got, and they have a very detailed scenarios survey to get our input, and there is a nexus with Climate Action Committee and some of those scenarios. So to everybody who has stuck with us all the way to 9:08 p.m. and everybody on the committee or about to be on the committee, if you haven't already either attended the workshop or watched it online, please go do it. And make the time to provide feedback on this, because we are a stakeholder in that.
Yeah.
And we have an obligation to be seeing this from a climate and resilience lens. Is there any other public comment to make at 9:08 p.m.? Hearing none, I think we are in line to have a motion to adjourn. Meet next on July 16.
Yeah.
At a Zoom link and location to be determined at 7 p.m.
Yeah,
Chair, her motion?
motion to adjourn. I don't know if we need a motion.
Well, we're looking at them right now, please. Or you can step.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone, and Brad, I just wanted to note how excellent your agenda was and your packet and how thorough it was and really good reading and context. So I really appreciate it because I know that you put a lot of time into it.
Thank you, thank you.
Second now.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning to meet next on July 16 at 7 p.m. Time and location and link to be determined.
Right.
Please signify by leaving this room. We're adjourned.
Brad, can you, this packet, I couldn't, can you show me what you
Not
sent?
yet, we're not off the air yet.
I'll second it.
Thank you, we're adjourned.